More than 1,000 people are still unaccounted for in Maui after the wildfires. A hurricane is hitting California for the first time in decades. Young voters say their top concern is climate change. How will you address this?
So it's a very, very good question. So let's talk about a lot of, you brought up the issue, Chris, of you've used the word climate change, and you've also used the word the fires in Maui. The intersection here is the following. Climate does change. It always changes. The issue is this. There has been a theory put forward by an organization called the International Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, and it started around in the mid-'80s, really perpetuated by a guy called Al Gore. And the concept is that CO2, which is a greenhouse gas, is being trapped in the atmosphere, and that CO2 gas is going to cause an increase in the surface temperature of the Earth. So this is a theory. Now, from a pure scientific standpoint, we need to recognize the following. The sun is this radiative body. It puts out so much radiation that hits the Earth. To be specific, the sun puts out 340 watts per square meter that hits the Earth. 140 of that bounces off the Earth's surface, and that means 200 watts per meter comes into the Earth. By simple energy balance, that other 200 watts per meter has to be dissipated. Well, the Earth has a process called convection, which is the interaction of the ocean water with the atmosphere. And through this very complex process, the Earth has this amazing ability to dissipate this other 200 watts per meter. Now, the quote unquote climate change proponents claim that because of the man-made CO2, we're not going to be able to dissipate all that heat, and that heat is going to be trapped in the Earth and it's going to increase temperature. So we do know greenhouse gases can increase temperature. The issue comes though, Chris, how much? That is what science is concerned about. You can take a little bit of salt or you can take a lot of salt, but based on what you take, you can cause damage to your body or be beneficial for your body. So in science, we're looking at how much. Now, the climate models that were used to make these assumptions were based on a mathematics that is actually unsolvable. You can win $1 million right now for actually being able to model what's called a turbulent fluid. And we're talking about two turbulent fluids, the atmosphere and the oceans. No one's been able to do this. In fact, if you actually bother reading the IPCC reports, which I have, there's about 120 models, and every model gives a very different answer. So for example, if you look at these models' prediction of how much Arctic ice will melt, one model says 100% will melt by 2050. Another says 0 will melt. And in fact, there's like the Baskin-Robbins flavors. There's one flavor for everyone. So this is not science. What is science? What is evidence in science? And as a scientist, I can tell you, evidence is reproducible predictions. If an apple is at this height and I drop it, I can predict exactly how long it'll take to drop to the ground using Newton's equations. I don't get 10 different answers. I'll get one answer. They have 120 different answers. This is not science. And therefore, they're not able to actually tell us how much the Earth's temperature is going to heat by any level of it. It's basically an error. More importantly, if you look at these models, guess what? They didn't include clouds in their model. Clouds were not included in the model, and more than enough evidence by the work of Dick Lindzen at MIT now shows clouds have an amazing effect to control the Earth's surface temperature, no different than the iris of your eye. If I shine a bright light, your eyes just don't stay wide open. They know how to close and open, right? In a similar way, they did not include clouds. So the models are completely bogus. So that's a very important point I just want to make from a scientific standpoint, that these models are based on nonsense. In fact, they don't predict anything. Now, getting to the wildfires, let's talk about something. I did a whole video on the Canadian wildfires. First of all, fires do take place. Wildfires do occur. However, the way that you control fires is through adequate forest management. You invest in infrastructure of proper airplanes, which can actually dump water. You have high penalties for arsonists that do cause a lot of these fires. And you also allow the people on the ground, farmers who know what to do their natural process of clearing the ways so fires are contained. Well, none of these processes have been supported, be it in Maui, be it in Australia where the fires have taken place, be it in Canada or any of these places. In fact, it appears by all evidence that the leadership of these regions, be it in Hawaii, be it in Canada, be it in Australia, actually want fires to take place. Why? Well, I'll give you the case in point is that if you take Canada, for example, they want to impose a carbon tax on all the working people by saying, oh my God, climate change is going to occur. We can't have more CO2 in the environment. So we're going to start taxing you. Canada wants to take its carbon tax of $70 per ton up to $170 per ton. All right. So they really want to triple the carbon tax. And so what better way to triple the carbon tax than to convince the masses, oh my God, look at these forest fires are being caused by climate change. Therefore, you should happily give your taxes so we can control these fires. So in my view, if you look at Maui, by all the evidence, people have been saying for many, many years that the basic infrastructure wasn't in place to control these forest fires. And by the way, arsonists really don't get that much penalty. There's really not not any type of serious liability, serious penalty to being an arsonist. It seems to me, by all evidence, that there is an economic incentive to support forest fires from occurring, because the economic incentive is the government's, state government, federal government can impose carbon tax on its people. So that's the linkage between these forest fires and climate change. There's a bogus science that's been created on climate change, absolutely nonsensical science that shows no evidence. And that bogus science, which is basically marketing, is being used as a basis to support carbon tax of working people. And what better way to amplify that marketing with ensuring that you don't put the right infrastructure in place in these states and these regions where forest fires are going to take place?
Well, that's an excellent answer. Using science with actual evidence-based science, not models. I'm sure the GOP heads are spinning with that one.
Well, the bottom line is none of those candidates on the stage can even talk to the reality why all these climate change models are bullshit, because they don't even know the science. They'll just probably be listening to my words and mimicking it. None of them can actually explain to people in very simple ways why these models are bullshit. None of them have actually read the IPCC report. And anything they say today, they'll contradict tomorrow. But if you look at what I've been saying for the last decade, it's always been consistent to this point that the climate change bullshit is being done to impose a carbon tax on working people and small businesses. It's literally a tax on the poor again. That's what it really is. This is why we need a systems overhaul, because things are not going to get better. We cannot be voting for the lesser of two evils. For the first time in American history in a long time, you have someone like me, one of us, trained engineer, trained scientist, mowed lawn, played baseball, came bottoms up, one of you. Why is it that I had to leave the Republican Party and run as independent? And obviously, a guy of my skin tone should have been embraced by the Democrats, but neither of these parties serve any of us anymore. So it's time for us to build a bottoms-up movement, and that's what Shiva for President's about. It's about us. It's about you and me uniting bottoms up and letting go of these idiots. Many of you know we have this movement called Truth, Freedom, Health. You can go to truthfreedomhealth.com and check it out. We need to build a bottoms-up movement. We need to shatter the swarm. The swarm are all those people on the debate stage, Republican and Democrat, black, brown, red, white, color, it doesn't matter. They're a multi-racial, global, decentralized bunch of assholes that do not give a fuck about you. What can you do? Well, go to Shiva for President. Many of you work hard, so we made it easy. Go get a bumper sticker. Get this bumper sticker, put it on the back windshield of your car. Why? 100,000 people will see that. That will be defiance, because you're telling them, fuck off. I no longer believe in your lesser of two evils. I'm supporting a guy who's one of us. If you're a little more adventurous, go on to Shiva for President, download one of these flyers, hand them to your neighbors. It's in the download section. If you want to donate, great, but I cannot take your money without giving something back. When you donate to me, I give you books, I give you knowledge, I give you courses, so you can become a truth, freedom, and health warrior. This is about us, and it is truly us versus them. And they do not want you living long and prosperous. I do. So anyway, everyone, thank you. ShivaForPresident.com. Truth, freedom, health to all of you. By the way, we need to get on the ballot in every state. Go to ShivaForPresident.com. Volunteer, volunteer, volunteer. This is our time. It is us versus them, and we must shatter the swarm. Be well, be the light. ShivaForPresident.com.